Good afternoon and welcome back to Gulfstream Park. Welcome back to Gulfstream today. Thank you for joining us here this morning. I'm Gabby Gaudette, joined by Andy Serling here to take a look at this 10-race program. But first, we've got to talk about the pick six on yesterday's card as well, and that bomb horse in the finale. Lots of very big and interesting payoffs as well.
Yeah, it was a tough sequence to get there, and it just shows, you look at the pick five and the pick six as well, but that the first leg of the pick five, the second leg of the pick six was that 1 to 5 shot that a lot of people singled, and it's not about short price favorites. It's really what happens in the other legs, and this was a tough one to put together. I managed in my pick five to have the last winner of the ticket. I think, though, he was one of two that I used that won the race, including the 1 to 5 shot.
And the exact and the finale paid very well, but just taking a look at the late pick four yesterday, it returned over $104,000. The pick five, $34,000, and of course that 20-cent rainbow pick six was hit for over $262,000 on a ticket that actually cost just over $1,000.
Yeah, whether or not it was part of a bigger play remains to be seen, but regardless, it was hit, and not easy to put it together, as you can see with those multi-race bets besides the Rainbow Six.
Well, we'll try to take a stab at it once again here today, but always a very tricky sequence. I thought the sequence was very tough today. I couldn't even find a single. We'll get to that later on today's show. But first, we'll talk about our featured wagers today. We do have one carryover, even though the pick six was hit yesterday. We do have a carryover in that super high five that does kick off in race one, just over $2,800. That also does start the early 50-cent pick five. As we get into the fifth race, it does start the 20-cent rainbow pick six. Once again, no carryover, and 50-cent late pick five does start in today's sixth race on the card. So we'll start it off with race one, and I think you have a ticket.
I do have a ticket in the pick five, if I can find it, actually. I'm going 1, 2, 8 to start it out in the first race. 8, 9, 1, 3, 5, 8, singling the favorite in the fourth leg and having the 1, 10, and 11 in the last race. A race where two of the horses I'd intentionally meant to use originally were scratched out of there. We'll talk about that race, but it felt to me like this first race, especially the scratch of the 3, you got the two logicals, the 2 and 8, and I'm a sucker for turnbacks, and I know Alex the Dude's no superstar, but Ralph Nix does a good job, and I'm just hoping the turnback can help energize this horse and make him a little faster than he's been in his prior races, but no argument against the 2 and 8.
He very well could. We'll talk about the 2 and the 8. Bezdad's Pride here for Jessica Campitelli. Put the blinkers on last time out, and simply enough, this horse is getting a tremendous class relief. Last time out, ran into a buzzsaw in Cat Tree. That horse went gate to wire. This is a horse who's been running low 70 buyer speed figures. There's nothing that's been running like that in
50.
this particular race.
70. If this was running 70, it'd be 1 to 9.
No, the winner of the last race.
Oh, the winner. I apologize. Cat Tree. I got you.
Yeah, no, I believe he was nominated for a stake as well. So he's in a completely different caliber. And this horse has just simply been outclassed in his past 4 or 5 starts.
Yeah, no, I have no argument against this horse. This is a logical horse. The thing about the 8, Boss Hog, who feels like he'll be in a reasonably good spot, maybe stalking the speed of the 5 in here, or perhaps being the main speed. I just wonder a little bit if you can rely on this horse to transfer form from out of town.
And we have seen some Keeneland horses, again, kind of sink or swim here in terms of the main track. The other thing is, I thought he got a really good, other than not getting off to a very good start coming out of the gate, I thought he got a really good trip when he did get his maiden score. Now he draws to the way outside. There seems to be a little bit of pace in here, so he could be in that pressing trip from the outside.
Yeah, I thought he'd get a pretty comfortable trip in here, and possibly as the main speed outside the 5. I just, it's splitting hairs. You've thrown the 4 in there, who I guess is a bit of a price. I'm not using any Javier Castellano horses that are too slow, because they're always going to be half the price they should be.
It is so true. But that seemed to be kind of a good race. Flashing Light was the next out winner we saw on yesterday's card as well. But this is a lateral move, and with horses that obviously are dropping from higher class levels as well. So this is a horse I'll throw in. I'm not absolutely crazy about him, though, but you land on the 1, Alex the Dude. We'll move on to the second race, and maiden special weight going out to the turf course at 1 mile and a 16th. Scratch the 2, Fair Prospect, and the 4, Euro Exchange. And the 2, Fair Prospect, you would have thought would get a little bit of money. You and I both try to beat him here with the 8, Amen Alley. So unfortunately, we're going to get a shorter price on him.
Right. I mean, we're going to show the replay of the race that I think we're going to still show that, where Amen Alley was coming out of it. The thing is, Fair Prospect is scratched, so there's no reason to worry about him at this point. But, it just felt to me, and I think you obviously agree, that Amen Alley, whose name I'm just having trouble pronouncing it, but he just had a tougher trip. He had a little bit of trouble at the start, and I just thought he ran the better race of the two and was a logical horse. But as you say, the value's gone now with Fair Prospect being scratched.
I agree with you. You can see Fair Prospect skimming the rail towards the inside, and you also have Amen Alley, who has to circle about 4 wide coming at the top of the stretch. Fortunately, again, you do see a Fair Prospect saving a bit more ground, and they finish head and head. I agree with you. I thought it was a better visual performance from the 8 Amen Alley, who was actually very keen early. It took a little bit of Javier Castellano had to try very hard to get this horse to settle in the early stages of the race. So I'm wondering if now, if he's not covered up, now he draws the outside, if he is actually going to be a pace presence in this race.
You would think he would be. Louis Saez will probably be a little bit aggressive with him. How fast he really is remains to be seen. It feels like the speed might now be the horse we have second in Aldrin. He's really the horse who's probably going to clear, and Javier's going to be aggressive. It's interesting about this horse. He's a have to tap it. It's really a big dirt family, and obviously they paid a lot of money with high expectations, and it hasn't panned out. But I remember early in this horse's career, Chad telling me that he thought he could be good on the turf. The problem is, when you pay that kind of money and with that kind of pedigree, you're not inclined to run him on the dirt until you've exhausted all options. Well, apparently they have.
Yeah, they definitely have. Last time out, I thought just a kind of a subpar performance. Obviously, there's nothing you can take from his past couple of performances. He was beaten favorite at Keeneland as well, and now they try a new surface, and he very well could like it and run off the screen. This is the type of horse that you have to be scared of.
Yeah, you do. On the other hand, he's now a 4-year-old, and his last race was bad, and you do wonder what he's got left.
The 5 Nile High Club. This is a horse I'll just use by Pioneer of the Nile. On the bottom side, the only real breeding I could see, his full brother actually, is mainly a dirt horse, and Ian Wilkes, I do believe he has won so far at this meet with transitioning a dirt horse to the turf, so perhaps he could do it again here today. I did find it interesting, his Palm Meadows workout, 5 furlongs on the turf, a nice minute and change workout, so maybe that gave him the inclination to try this horse on the turf.
Those Stephen got even mares they're real lawnmowers.
All right, we'll take a look at race 3 here, a maiden $25,000 event, 1-turn mile on the main track. And the 2 postscript I opt for, although was beaten by a big long shot favorite, I believe Bella Newstead there was 82-1, did go gate to wire, but that was on a day, I wouldn't say it was a speed favoring day, but as the day progressed, speed tended to hold a little bit better, kind of in the latter half of the card. And of course, you do see an 82-1 shot gate to wire winner, and that always leaves you scratching your head.
Yeah, I'm not taking horses that lost to that ridiculous horse. I mean, that horse felt like an underlaid 82-1 looking at its PPs, and that's why I just didn't want that horse. I guess the horses that'll track the most money in here are the horses you have second and third. The 8, A Place to Shine, who I thought ran fine in that race, was a little bit wide, didn't run great, but it wasn't a bad effort first time out, and maybe he'll be better going longer. And Olympic Smoke, who's going to be overbet with Javier, but it's a Smoke Glacken, who it's not as though that pace just completely and totally evaporated. I thought that this horse's last race was bad, and I really wonder if Olympic Smoke wants to get a mile.
And that is a good question that you pose. It was coming off a little bit of a freshening there, but again, I think that this horse might get some company on the lead as she did last time out. We have Spitfire Wind, who could pressure the pace, and we have a couple others who are stretching out. The interesting horse to me is the 8, A Place to Shine, for Gilberto Zerpa. Looking at some statistics with maiden second-time starters on the dirt, the barn is actually very strong, 5 for 13, 38%, and a positive ROI over $4. So this is an interesting horse. You see Crystal's Cantata in the running lines, who obviously we were talking about yesterday, upped her by her speed figures by, I believe, 20 points, transitioning her form to the turf. So, again, this could be an interesting horse as well.
Yeah, the trainer's not good stretching out, though. His overall stretch-out numbers aren't good. Listen, obviously I have that horse in the mix. I'm betting Cassini in here. I mean, Cassini's an easy horse for me because he feels like a good all-or-nothing type, or she does, an all-or-nothing type horse. Whether or not she can run it all is obviously in question. And if she can't, she'll run badly and be another loser I'll bet on. That's going to happen quite frequently. I like the first race that she's coming out of. I felt that was a better race than the figures suggested. There's nothing wrong with the figs. The figs are lousy, but I like that. And then she comes back in obviously a much, much tougher spot in a maiden special weight. I've got a trainer stat for Kelly Breen, who has exceptional numbers going maiden special weight to maiden claimers, where he's 8 for 23, a high ROI, and that's a big ROI for this kind of stat. And he's won at Gulfstream. He's 1 for 3 doing it at Gulfstream. I'm just taking a shot because I don't think anybody in here has shown that much.
Maiden special weight to maiden 25, a big drop indeed. With that said, we'll move on to the fourth race, a starter optional claiming event, and have a couple of scratches in here. The 5 Moonshine Promise, a 7-year-old mare. This is a horse that I believe you singled in the early pick 5.
Yeah, I did. I mean, we'll look at the last race. This is a horse that won the Claiming Crown race last time out. I know it was some moisture in the track, but it's not as though this horse showed it needed moisture in the track, was winning at Thistledown, and fits in the condition, not in for a tag. It's not like they're dumping this horse. Isn't she just much the horse to beat in here? I mean, I figure it's a fast pace, and she'll probably be sitting behind the 6 Elusive Harmony, but I can't make a strong case against her.
I can't either. I think she has that rating type of speed as she's shown at sprint distances, even with added distance to the mile and even farther. I just think she's much the horse to beat, and we have seen Peter Walder, even this meet specifically, some of these acquisitions from Thistledown and other places as well, they've just been running extremely well. I think the moisture on the track might have helped her, but she's definitely capable of beating this group on a fast track as well.
Yeah, I mean, you have a trainer stat, which I consider a negative. And maybe this is a little food for thought. I mean, obviously, if you're a trainer and you're winning at 23%, that's fine. On the other hand, it's not good if your horses are 4 to 5 like Moonshine Promise is going to be. And as you can see with the ROI, it's not good with those horses. These are $5 horses that are not winning enough to cover it. This horse feels like the right horse in here, though.
But they might be reliable enough if a trainer's batting at 23% to at least use as a single and try to find value elsewhere in those multi-race gimmicks.
You know, for me, if I had a strong alternative, I would have no problem betting against this horse, whether or not the horse, Peter Walder brought this Luch Racing, brought horses cranked up for the Claiming Crown. They got it done. They won 2 races. You do wonder if they'll run as well. On the other hand, the horse has had over a month, so it's not like they're coming right back. It's not like they're dumping the horse in for a tag and trying to lose it. So clearly they want to keep the horse. And who are you supposed to take? Roll It Gal, who's a huge price in all the races, but seems like a player in here. Courtney Ryan seems okay.
I don't know. You could use the 2 Courtney Ryan. This is a horse that I use in the Exacta, but we haven't really seen a whole lot of follow through. You can perhaps forgive her on the good sealed track last time out, but again, she has been capable of winning on and off track as well. I just think that the pace in this race will set up for the 5 Moonshine Promise. I liked the 10 a little bit, Concealed with a Kiss from the outside, who has been capable of beating similar company. But again, I do think Moonshine Promise is a notch above her as well.
I do, and that's just where I'm going to take a stand on this pick 5. Because if I don't, I'm going to use 3 horses in here, and I don't want to use 3. I'd rather use 1 and spend less money.
Okay, well, talking about the pick 5, we've got the pick 6, and we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll talk about that 20-cent Rainbow 6 sequence right after this commercial break. Welcome back to Gulfstream today. Gabby Gaudet joined by Andy Serling as we get into the 20-cent Rainbow Pick 6. No carryover today, but no excuses to not dive right back into it. It was hit yesterday for a pretty penny, over $262,000 on a $1,000 ticket. We'll take a look at the sequence here. My ticket's a little bit cheaper than $1,000, only $76.80, but we'll try to make it happen here, Andy. Using 4 horses in the first leg of the sequence, 2 numbers 7 and 8 in race 6, using 4 horses in race 7, 2 horses in race 8, 3 horses in race 9, and 2 horses in race 10 as well. And you got to take this ticket with a grain of salt. I had a tough time with the sequence today. I couldn't find a single. I could have used 3 or 4 horses in the finale. I could have even used more in race 7. We'll talk about it and perhaps talk about some other options that you might want to throw into the mix as well. And I'm interested to see your late pick 5 ticket, and if you had a single, we'll get to that ticket in race 6. Okay, so you didn't. Race 5 does start us off, though, and I thought this was an interesting one. I really like the 3 Dukas in here. Unfortunately,
too.
he is out. She is out, excuse me. So by default, I land on the 11 Legend of the Kitten. But I do think this is a very formful horse who very well could win this.
Oh, absolutely. On the other hand, this is a drop down. We'll show the stat for Mike Maker. And it's interesting. I actually had this conversation on Twitter as I was looking over the stats for this race, whether you want allowance to claim or not. I want first time for a tag. And Mike Maker, who does his stats universally, Gabby, on the turf are just great. And this is not a good number. I mean, 20% is fine, but it's not Mike Maker-like numbers, and the ROI stinks. Because you think about these horses, he feels like when he's dropping him in for a tag, it's a real negative. And the other thing about Legend the Kitten, who I end up with on top because of the scratches, as do you, I mean, we're in the exact same boat. We like the same horse. We probably wanted to play a little against Legend the Kitten. This horse is a bit of a plotter.
Is a plotter, I do agree. And the mile and a 16th distance today could pose as a problem, but we could also see her just completely closing from off the pace, and her class wins. She gets Julian Leparoux, who's very good with these deep closers on the turf as well.
They fit his style.
And they fit his style. And I also I'm handicapping on the angle that she really didn't like the course at all last time out at Churchill, which we have seen several different horses come here and actually improve on this firmer going.
Well, it's such an aberrationally bad effort. Either it's a complete dump job or she didn't handle the turf. It's probably some combination of both of them.
I think it's a combination.
And a Racin's fit, you've got the 5 Spring Spirit in the mix now, and you're using this horse in your Rainbow 6. I don't like this horse, but this horse could easily be the controlling speed in here.
And that's why I went with her, because I'm looking at the race, thinking about the pace of the race. Cheek to cheek could have been a pace presence in here, and now is a scratch. Again, now stretching out from 6 furlongs. She actually was just a few lengths off the pace going the mile at Woodbine, but she was on the lead going 2 turns at Gulfstream here in the past. So I'm thinking that she could go to the front end, gets Jose Lezcano, and she was kind of a last-minute adjustment for me.
No, I think she's a reasonable throw, and I wonder if you'll get some speed from the 9 Manhattan Moxie. We'll see how the race plays out. For me, I lost some enthusiasm. I'll use Light My Path as well, who seems to fit in here. Off the turf races up at Woodbine. But like you say, it's hard with races when you're looking to play against a horse who's favored and the horse you like is an alternative is scratched.
I know, it's very tough. You have to go back to the drawing board. All right, we'll take a look at race 6. Maiden special weight, 6.5 furlongs onto the main track. Scratch the 4, Morea in here. And again, this is the 4 scratching out of here was actually a little bit of a play for me. But my top selection is, as it stands, a 7 Treasure. First, before we get into this race, let's talk about your late pick 5 ticket. You said you had no singles, but I'm interested to see how many horses you use in the first leg.
Yeah, I'm going to use 3 horses in here. I'm going to use Treasure, who I'm not a fan of, who has failed too many times for me at short prices and is really not that good. I'm using 3, 5, 7 here. I think the 3 is a danger on the front end. Going 6-11, I'm going very thin in that turf sprint. I'm absolutely taking a shot here, but I didn't want to commit too much money to this. It's a very hard sequence. We have the same 2 and 3 horses in the third and fourth legs of this sequence. And, talking about Treasure, this horse might win, but how many chances do you want to give a horse that's lost at 3-5, 4-5, and even money in 3 of its 5 starts?
It's a great question you pose, but I do think that this filly has put in some pretty decent races. We do see Double Bolt. She went gate to wire last time out. She seemed like a very impressive performance that day, not to mention speed was relatively strong that day as well. And Wrath of Ruthie, I mean, that's a horse who's been running in the 90 by her speed figures. You're not going to run into a buzzsaw like that in here today, but she could be the type of filly that even if she runs into a filly that's been running 70 by her speed figures, she can't follow through.
She also lost by 9.5 lengths to that horse, where 9.5 lengths often gets you 5th and 6th in these races. She can win. I'm not way against her. I just didn't want her. Candy Sue, before we get to my top choice, who really finished just behind Treasure recently, Candy Sue, we'll take a look at the replay. I don't think that Candy Sue ran badly in this race at Laurel. I think this horse is going to attract attention as a newcomer and a new face. I know the winner had a perfect trip to the rail to beat her. This was a bad field. These are New York horses that she was running against, and they're not good horses.
No, we saw the winner, in fact, Picture Day, come back out of that race to run very poorly in a first-level allowance. I believe she was 5th at Aqueduct. So that the winner wasn't strong, not to mention who she beat in the rest of the race. And she just, perhaps she could have waited a little bit more. Maybe she looks like a type of filly that wants to wait and then explode at the top of the stretch. I don't know. I couldn't. Her breeding's phenomenal. I mean, she's by Indian Charlie out of a mare who's produced some very nice horses. I couldn't jump on her today.
Look, she could improve in her second start, and she was a little wide. Ring Knocker. Ring Knocker obviously was cut out to be a very good horse. She lost to By the Moon, who won the Frisette. She lost to Top Decile, who was second in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies. And obviously the wheels came off. They did spend a little too much time running her in route races. I don't think her races are atrocious in the last two starts. They're okay. And keep in mind, she finished just behind Treasure last time, who's going to be a much shorter price. I really like the switch to Luis Saez. Not only think he's a better jockey, he's a more aggressive jockey. And she's a horse who ran better when she was ridden more aggressively in races. Now, maybe she just doesn't have that speed anymore, but I'm going to give her that chance in the switch, third off a layoff, because at one time she'd blow these horses out of the water.
Okay, you opt for the 5 Ring Knocker there, but an interesting way to kick off the sequence. Indeed, we'll move on to the 7th race on the card, headed out to the turf course at 5 furlongs for the 16,000 conditional claimer. And I thought this was an interesting race. You have a really interesting angle, too, with your top selection here, who I kind of overlooked, but you did kind of sell me this morning, actually, on this horse.
I think one of the reasons I wanted an alternative is I don't want the horses that are coming out of the race we're going to look at. And it includes a whole slew of these horses. And one of them is Some Roar, who I thought just got an absolutely perfect trip. I know it's a huge rider switch going. We can watch the replay as we're talking about it. It's a huge rider switch going from Jeffrey Sanchez to Javier Castellano. On the other hand, you cannot possibly ride this horse better than Sanchez rode him. The other horse, I mean, this was a very daring ride by Corrales coming up the fence, but this horse gets an opening and comes through on the inside. These horses had perfect trips. And Gabby, I just didn't want any of the horses that were coming out of this race, and there are quite a few of them in here.
Absolutely. Some Roar did get an absolutely dream trip, and that's kind of why I went with a newcomer as well in Yarmorka. But Some Roar, there are several others, Shining America. What do you do with these horses? Do you take a stand against them in the pick 6 and the pick 5, or do you have to include them?
It's a question of what you're spending. I mean, we're not talking about spending. You're spending 76 in the pick 6. I'm spending 54 in the pick 5. If I was playing for serious money and there was some sort of carryover you want to get involved in, you're going to have to use a lot of horses in this race because this is a survival race.
It is.
On the other hand, if I'm going to gamble small money, I'm going to take a stand in this race and be logical in the other legs and hope I'm smart. The logical horses, they win. And then a horse like Penry, I'll excuse Henry's last race. It was a soft turf at Laurel. You look at the final time, it was a bog. So I don't care where the horse ran because horses run well enough in the past. I can dismiss it. The prior 5.5 furlong race on October 16th, I think these are better horses. The winner came back and ran 8 Beyer points faster in its next race. I think the third horse ran 16 Beyer points higher. These may be better horses that it was running against. A new face for a good trainer. Why not?
It was actually a very good race. Officer Buns, the horse that you were alluding to there, has been actually, I believe she went on to finish second against 2 other than Allowance Optional Claiming Company. I thought she had no shot, and she hit the exacta. So this is an interesting horse that you do pose, and a boggy course last time out. The winner actually did have some back class sprinting, though, as well, so comes out of a good race. They land on the 6 Yarmorka here. Second off the claim for Leo Gabriel Jr. Blinkers do come off. I think the 7 WOV or Wove, however you say this horse's name, is going to be probably the fastest horse early, and she could just very well just stalk behind her. I think that might be the inclination of taking the blinkers off and cutting back to the 5 furlongs.
Yeah, I also felt the 13 Gaga over you. I mean, Joel has no choice. He's got to go from outside in there. I thought it would be a reasonable base. I'm with you on the 6. I think this is a horse that's just dropping back into the right spot, and turf sprint seemed to be in a better place.
Okay, race 8 on the card, a 2 other than Allowance Optional Claiming event, 6.5 furlongs onto the main track. And we have 2 horses who I think kind of stand out amongst the rest, the 3 Enchantress and the 4 Boblet in here for Shug McGahee. And I believe you have a little stat to kick us off here.
Well, let's show Boblet's last race. She was uber impressive in here. And if she comes back with this kind of effort, she's simply going to win this race. There's no two ways about it. I'll tell you what's amazing, Gabby. She was bet. They bet her in this race like they knew she hated the slop. I didn't love her maiden win. It was a fast fig race in a bad field. But, man, did she run well in here. And I think she's on paper, she's a cinch. We have two stats. You have a different stat than I do. Overall, we're going to show these stats in a row. My stat is off of wins. Shug's wins off of dirt, off of his races, off of wins in dirt sprints. His numbers. This is your stat, actually.
Oh, this is my stat. Aqueduct to Gulfstream, past year. 6 out of 14, so 43% and a positive ROI. Now, to even delve into that even more, 4 out of those 6 winners have been on the dirt. So it's not like he's bringing horses from Aqueduct or Naira in general on the turf and bringing them down here and still winning on the turf. 4 out of the 6 have been on the main track.
But as if we can show that stat of mine, his numbers off of wins, and one of the reasons I didn't like her 2 back, and it probably had more to do with the slop, was that his numbers off of wins in dirt sprints are not good. And he's just 2 for 18 with a 45-cent ROI. Doesn't really matter. She's the horse to beat. Enchantress is one of these Pletcher horses that just seem to win down here. She's not a good horse. She's got 2 good efforts, one at Keeneland, one at Gulfstream, and the rest of the races aren't bad. They're very mediocre. Having said that, she kept some good company. She ran against La Verdad. These just seem to be the kind of horses that Todd wins down here. I want an alternative to Bobbilette. Rather than the layoff horses who I don't love, I took the 3.
And Bobbilette, though, going the 6.5 furlongs, perhaps this could be an okay distance for her, but you would have to think that she's going to be pretty far off the pace, or at least in the middle part of the race here.
Yeah, I think Bobbilette will be relatively close. It feels like the 5 is supposed to be the speed with the 9. I'm not taking the 5 off a 1.5-year layoff, and I'm not a 21-month layoff, and I'm not taking the 9 off a 6-month layoff, and I don't know if the 9's good enough anyway.
All right. Honestly, I think there's going to be a pretty decent amount of pace in here between the 5, 6, and the 9 in here, so we could see Bobbilette just sit in the second wave of horses. I think, obviously we saw Gap Year yesterday as well, heavily favored, different connections obviously for Kieran McLaughlin, but you always have to approach these types of horses with a little bit of caution and maybe back yourself up in the pick 6. That's why I couldn't even single her.
Well, you also want to, it's hard to know what price these horses are going to be. Gap Year, when I thought about yesterday, I was going over the card, that was a terrible pick on my part because I should have known she'd be over bet. I thought maybe with Chad in there they'd bet more. We'll see. You have to go back and look at horses like that. They're bad bets at short prices.
Race 9, the first half of the late daily double, allowance optional claiming event, 1 mile and 3/16 on the turf course. And I thought this was one of the more interesting races on the card, the 3 Indian Starlight. I'm going to be opting for here, getting out of the Jane Sabelli barn for the first time, but has to prove that can get the distance. Only tried this distance one other time in the past. That was at Saratoga against First Level Allowance Company against a good field. But her last race was visually very good, and she was just beaten 3/4 of a length behind a very nice, she was just beaten a half length behind a very nice horse who went on to run a very good race in the Tropical Park Oaks.
Yeah, that's a Clement horse, I think, a Euro of his, actually. And that was a decent race. I agree. She ran fine there. Jane Sabelli's got great numbers. We've got a stat for her off trainer switches on the turf that are exceptional, and one of the reasons I also used the horse. But as you say, the distance is a question with her. I thought the distance wouldn't be a problem for my horse, the 9 Rock Me Mama, and there's no doubt I've got a thing for Rock Me Mama. I think Mike Maker's done a good job with her. She's got some good routes. Last time out, it was a boggier course, and you can see it was listed as good, but they won 148-2 for the mile and a 16th, so it was a lot of give in that ground. And I'm hoping getting back to a firm turf, this horse will run a better race as she did over the summer in New York. Taking a bit of a shot with her because I didn't love anybody else, Gabby.
She makes sense too. A dead-end closer from off the pace. She figures to be running late, especially at this distance. She definitely looks like one that can get the distance. The 11 Lady Dinah now to the outside. She's coming out of a race behind Enchantress, who was obviously disqualified for coming out of the gate, but she wasn't hindered at all. She was on the outside. Enchantress took a left-handed turn coming out of the gate and completely compromised pretty much everybody inside of her. But I do think that she's going to be forwardly placed in here. Tyler Gaffleone in the saddle. I honestly, from that outside post position, that's the only option she can do, is perhaps be close to the pace.
I agree. It feels like Dee is supposed to go from the rail. Perhaps the 10 Queen Corey's going to go, and Paco probably will. But I agree. Even if he just leaves and gets position, she's far from impossible in this race, as is Tiz Talented. A lot of horses to talk about, not a lot of time.
We'll get to it later today, I guess. Race 10, the 10th and final race on the card, a maiden $35,000 event, 7.5 furlongs on the turf course. And this is a race where you either have a solid opinion, maybe use 2 or 3 different horses in those multi-race sequences. I like the 12, John's Kitten. I actually liked this horse a lot last time out as a long shot against Maiden Special Weight Company, and now dropping in class.
I think if we look at, we're going to actually look a little at the last race. I thought John's Kitten ran okay in here. I think we have the replay at some of that race actually to go to. I don't think this horse is that bad. Actually, we're going to go.
We're going to talk about the 11.
Oh,
Starship
you wanted to show that. I
Danny.
apologize.
Well, this was honestly, you can't see much of it. I kind of wanted to get the head on here just so we could see how compromised this horse was coming out of the start. And completely jostled back. You can see the number 3 horse, and it almost looked as though the rider, Luca Panici, I don't know, maybe lost an iron at first. It took him a little bit of time to kind of get back up in the saddle, and you would think that this horse is going to be a pace presence today, given the fact of his poor start last time out. I just think he'll get a more comfortable trip, and although he is stretching out from the 5 furlongs last time out, I think he seems like a horse that could probably get the added distance of 7.5.
Okay. Fair enough. I didn't like the horse, but listen, I don't think there's any superstars near. Back to John's Kitten, I apologize about the replay. I just think this is the logical horse dropping down. I don't think there's anything clever to say about this horse. I agree with you. I just think this is the horse to beat. We do both have the 8 world leader in the mix, and I imagine for the exact same reasons.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the bottom side of the turf breeding on the bottom side here. It's half to Merrim, $900,000 turf Warner as well, and there's some really nice breeding on the bottom side, but bred to a Fleet Alex. Again, this is a horse who perhaps hasn't panned out just yet on the dirt, and now they're trying a new surface.
Yeah, what I don't like is you've got a half to Maram, who won the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies. I think maybe in the inaugural running, or maybe the first one. It was Chad Brown's first big win as a trainer. And a Fleet Alex in Northern Fleets, there's plenty of turf influence, and they're running the horse for a tag right away. So this horse probably isn't very good, but is definitely bred to move forward on the turf, and that was good enough. I just think you're supposed to use horses like this in multi-race bets.
I agree with you. All right, well, that's a wrap for us here on Gulfstream today. Races 1 through 10 in the books, and we do have the 20-cent Rainbow Pick 6 does start in today's 5th race on the program, and once again, we do have a carryover in that rolling super high 5 in the first race. We're going to take a quick break, and Larry Colmus will be up shortly with scratches and changes. Best of luck.